Hook. The day everything changed. The day my own sister stood on that stage and called my company her creation, I felt something inside me break. Not because strangers believed her, not because the cameras were pointed at her, but because she looked directly into my eyes while accepting the applause, and smiled. A smile that said she knew exactly what she had done. And worse, she thought she had gotten away with it. What happened next shocked everyone, the investors, the employees, even my own family. But before I tell you how I exposed her and took back everything she stole, you need to understand how it all began. Because this wasn't just a business story. It was a story about trust, about betrayal, and about the price people pay when they underestimate the wrong person. 3 years earlier, my life looked completely different. My name is Emma, and at that time I was working from a tiny apartment with a secondhand laptop that sounded like it was about to explode every time I opened more than 3 tabs. Most people saw an ordinary woman struggling to make ends meet. What they didn't see were the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the endless hours spent building an idea nobody believed in, including my family. Every morning I woke up before sunrise. Every night I worked until my eyes burned. While my friends were enjoying weekends and vacations, I was studying markets, designing products, contacting suppliers, and trying to build something meaningful. It wasn't glamorous. There were days I cried from exhaustion, days when I wondered if I was wasting my life, days when I considered giving up. But every time doubt appeared, I reminded myself why I started. I wanted freedom. I wanted to prove that success wasn't reserved for people born with money. And most importantly, I wanted to build something that belonged to me, something nobody could take away. At least that's what I believed. My older sister, Sophia, was the complete opposite. Where I was quiet, she was confident. Where I worked behind the scenes, she loved attention. She always knew how to walk into a room and become the center of it. People admired her. Family members praised her. Friends followed her. Even when we were kids, Sophia somehow managed to make every achievement look effortless. And honestly, for most of my life, I admired her too. She was my sister, my role model, the person I trusted more than anyone. Whenever life became difficult, she was usually the first person I called. Whenever I had good news, she was the first person I wanted to tell. So when my business idea started showing promise, sharing it with her felt natural. I never imagined that decision would become the biggest mistake of my life. One evening, after months of development, I finally created a working version of my product. I remember staring at my computer screen in disbelief. For the first time, everything worked. The design, the system, the customer experience, everything. My heart was racing. I felt like I was standing at the beginning of something extraordinary. Without thinking twice, I grabbed my phone and called Sophia. "You're not going to believe this," I said. She laughed. "What happened?" "It finally works." "What works?" "The company." There was silence, then excitement. "Emma, that's amazing." For the next hour, I explained everything, every detail, every strategy, every future plan, every challenge, every opportunity. And Sophia listened carefully, too carefully. At the time, I thought she was being supportive. Now I know she was collecting information. Over the next several months, the company slowly grew. Customers started arriving. Revenue increased. People began talking about the brand. It wasn't huge yet, but it was moving. For the first time in years, I felt hopeful. Sophia became even more involved. She constantly asked questions, wanted updates, requested reports, suggested improvements. At first, I appreciated her interest. After all, she was family. Who wouldn't want support from family? Whenever she offered advice, I listened. Whenever she asked for information, I shared it. Whenever she wanted to see business documents, I showed them. Looking back now, the warning signs were everywhere. But trust has a strange way of making obvious dangers invisible. One afternoon, Sophia invited me to lunch. She arrived wearing expensive clothes, and carrying the confidence she always had. After we ordered food, she leaned forward. "Emma," she said, "your company has real potential." I smiled. "Thanks." "No, seriously, this could become something big." Hearing that from her meant a lot. For years, many people had doubted me. But now my sister believed in me. At least that's what I thought. Then she asked a question. "Have you considered bringing in investors?" I shook my head. "Not yet." "Why not?" "I want more control first." Sophia nodded slowly. "I understand. Just be careful." "Careful about what?" "Success changes people." At the time, I thought she was giving me advice. Now I realize she was giving herself permission. Months passed. The company continued growing. Customers loved the product. Reviews were positive. Opportunities started appearing. For the first time, investors actually reached out to me. I was excited, terrified, and hopeful. This was the breakthrough I'd worked toward for years. Naturally, I told Sophia. Her reaction seemed supportive. She congratulated me, encouraged me, celebrated with me. But something felt different, subtle, almost impossible to explain. Whenever I talked about future plans, she seemed unusually interested. Whenever investors were mentioned, her attention sharpened. Whenever success appeared closer, her smile looked slightly forced. Still, I ignored the feeling. Because nobody wants to believe the people they love might be working against them. Then came the family dinner that changed everything. It was supposed to be a celebration. My parents invited relatives. Everyone gathered around the table. The atmosphere was warm, happy, exciting. At one point, my father raised his glass. "Let's congratulate Emma," he said. The room applauded. I felt embarrassed but grateful. Then my father asked me to explain the company. As I spoke, people listened with interest. Some asked questions. Others offered encouragement. Everything felt perfect. Until Sophia interrupted. "Oh, Emma is being modest," she said. Everyone looked at her. Sophia smiled. "I've actually helped shape a lot of the business." The comment caught me off guard. Helped shape it? She'd given advice, nothing more. But before I could respond, relatives started praising her involvement. My sister accepted the compliments without correcting anyone. A strange feeling settled in my stomach. Small, uncomfortable, but impossible to ignore. For the first time, I wondered if she was taking credit for things she hadn't done. Then I immediately felt guilty for thinking it. Because she was my sister, and sisters don't betray each other, right? I wanted to believe that. I really did. Unfortunately, reality had other plans. A few weeks later, an investor meeting was scheduled. It was the biggest opportunity my company had ever received. Everything depended on making a good impression. I spent days preparing, presentations, financial reports, growth projections. Every detail mattered. The night before the meeting, Sophia called. "How are preparations going?" "Nervous," I admitted. She laughed. "You'll do great." Then she asked something strange. "Can you send me the final presentation?" "Why?" "I just want to review it." Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice, but something about the request felt unusual. Still, I sent it. Because trust can be dangerous when given to the wrong person. And I was about to learn that lesson in the most painful way imaginable. The next morning, I walked into that investor meeting believing I was about to secure the future of my company. I had no idea that someone had already moved against me. Someone I loved, someone I trusted, someone who shared my last name. And before the week ended, my entire world would be turned upside down. The morning of the investor meeting felt like the beginning of a dream. I woke up before sunrise, unable to sleep because my mind was racing with possibilities. Years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and endless hard work had led to this moment. If the meeting went well, my company could finally reach the next level. As I drove toward the office building where the presentation would take place, I kept rehearsing my opening lines. I wanted everything to be perfect. The investors were some of the biggest names in the industry, and earning their trust could change my future forever. When I arrived, I was surprised to see several people already gathered in the conference room. They greeted me politely, but something felt strange. There was an unusual look in their eyes, as if they expected me to be someone else. At first, I ignored the feeling. I assumed it was just nervousness. Then one of the investors smiled and said something that instantly made my stomach drop. "It's great to finally meet the founder's sister," he said. For a moment, I thought I had heard him wrong. I stared at him in confusion. "The founder's sister?" I repeated. The investor looked equally confused. "Yes," he replied. "Sophia told us you would be helping with the presentation today." The room suddenly felt smaller. My heartbeat became louder. I forced a smile and sat down, trying to understand what was happening. Then the door opened. Sophia walked into the room wearing an expensive business suit, carrying herself with the confidence of a CEO. She greeted everyone warmly, shaking hands and exchanging friendly conversations. What shocked me most wasn't her presence. It was the way everyone treated her. They looked at her like she owned the company, like she had built everything herself. I sat there frozen as she took a seat at the head of the table and began speaking. Within minutes, I realized the horrifying truth. She had been communicating with the investors behind my back for weeks. Every report I had shared with her, every presentation, every strategy document, every growth projection. She had used all of it to position herself as the face of the company, as the real founder, as the visionary behind the success. I wanted to interrupt. I wanted to stand up and expose her immediately. But shock kept me silent. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister was presenting my work as if it belonged to her. Every sentence felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. The investors nodded with admiration as she described challenges she had never faced and sacrifices she had never made. They praised her leadership. They complimented her vision. They congratulated her on achievements that belonged to me. Then came the moment that hurt the most. One investor turned toward me and asked, "How does it feel supporting your sister's incredible success?" The room waited for my answer. I looked at Sophia. She looked back at me without a hint of guilt. No apology, no shame, nothing. Just confidence. In that moment, I understood something painful. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. This was planned, deliberate, calculated. She knew exactly what she was doing. Somehow, I managed to finish the meeting without causing a scene. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. But mostly, I wanted answers. The second we left the building, I confronted her in the parking lot. "What was that?" I demanded. Sophia sighed as if I were overreacting. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "You let them believe you're the founder." She crossed her arms. "I never technically said I was. You didn't correct them either." Her expression hardened. "Emma, you need to stop being emotional." Emotional. That single word made me furious. Years of work had just been stolen, and she was calling me emotional. Then she said something I will never forget. "Let's be honest. You're good at creating things, but I'm better at selling them. Investors trust people like me. Without me, this company wouldn't have these opportunities." I stared at her in disbelief. It felt like I was talking to a stranger. This wasn't the sister I grew up with. This was someone entirely different. Someone ambitious enough to step on anyone standing between her and success. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying every conversation we'd ever had, every question she'd asked, every document she'd requested. Slowly, the pieces began fitting together. The signs had been there all along. I just hadn't wanted to see them. Over the next few weeks, things became even worse. More investors started contacting Sophia directly. Industry articles began mentioning her name alongside the company. At networking events, she introduced herself as the driving force behind the business. Meanwhile, I was becoming invisible inside my own creation. Employees started looking confused about leadership roles. Partners began reaching out to her instead of me. It felt like someone was slowly erasing my identity from the company I had built with my own hands. The betrayal wasn't just professional anymore. It was personal. Every day felt like another piece of my life being stolen. Friends told me to fight back immediately. Family members advised me to avoid conflict. Some even suggested sharing credit to keep the peace. But they didn't understand. This wasn't about ego. This wasn't about recognition. This was about truth. If I allowed this lie to continue, everything I had worked for could disappear forever. One evening, while reviewing old company records, I made an important discovery. Every contract, every registration document, every early email, every development file, every financial record, everything pointed directly to me. I had more evidence than I realized. The problem wasn't proving the truth. The problem was timing. Sophia had spent months building an image. If I challenged her too soon, she would paint me as jealous and unstable. I needed a plan, a careful plan, a smart plan. For the first time since the betrayal began, I stopped thinking like a victim. I started thinking strategically. If Sophia wanted to play a game of appearances, I would let her continue. If she wanted attention, I would give her attention. If she wanted the spotlight, I would let her stand directly beneath it. Because sooner or later, every spotlight reveals the truth. And when that moment came, I wouldn't need to scream. I wouldn't need revenge fueled by anger. I would only need facts. The kind of facts that could destroy a lie in seconds. As I closed my laptop that night, a strange feeling replaced my sadness. Determination. Sophia believed she had already won. She believed I was too quiet, too emotional, and too weak to fight back. She had no idea what was coming next. And neither did the investors who had trusted her story. But very soon, everyone would learn who really built the company. And when they did, Sophia's perfect image would begin to crack. That night, after realizing how far Sophia had gone to steal my identity, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the city lights outside my window. A few weeks earlier, I would have spent hours crying, asking myself why my own sister would do something so cruel. But something had changed inside me. The shock was gone. The sadness was fading. In its place was clarity. For the first time since the betrayal began, I understood that emotions would not save my company. Anger would not restore my reputation. And arguing with Sophia would not make people believe me. The only thing that could change the situation was proof. Clear, undeniable proof. Sophia had built her success on a story. If I wanted to expose her, I needed facts strong enough to destroy that story in front of everyone. So I stopped focusing on what she had taken from me and started focusing on what she could never take away. The truth. The next morning, I began collecting every piece of evidence connected to the company. Old emails, business registrations, product development records, early financial statements, customer conversations, investor communications, meeting notes, design drafts, contracts. Every document told the same story. I had started the company alone. I had built the product. I had found the customers. I had created the systems. Sophia's name barely appeared in any of the records. The more evidence I gathered, the more confident I became. The truth was stronger than I had imagined. Still, I knew evidence alone wasn't enough. People rarely change their opinions because of a document. They change when they witness something impossible to ignore. That realization gave me an idea. Instead of chasing Sophia and trying to correct every lie she told, I would let her continue telling them. The bigger her story became, the harder her fall would be. For the next several weeks, I remained surprisingly quiet. I stopped arguing with family members who believed Sophia. I stopped correcting people at networking events. I stopped responding to rumors. To everyone watching from the outside, it looked like I had accepted defeat. Some people even pitied me. Others assumed Sophia's version of events was true. But while they were making assumptions, I was preparing. Every day I organized evidence. Every night, I built a timeline showing exactly how the company had been created. I contacted former employees, early customers, and business partners who had worked with me from the beginning. Most of them were shocked when they learned what was happening. Several offered to help immediately. Others volunteered to provide written statements confirming my role as founder. Slowly, a powerful collection of proof began taking shape. Meanwhile, Sophia grew more confident. Success seemed to change her. The more attention she received, the more reckless she became. She started giving interviews. She appeared on podcasts. She spoke at business events. In every appearance, she presented herself as the visionary behind the company. Sometimes she changed details. Sometimes she exaggerated stories. Sometimes she invented challenges she had supposedly overcome. What she didn't realize was that every interview created another opportunity for me. Every false statement became another contradiction. Every exaggerated claim became another weakness. I watched patiently as she built a tower of lies higher and higher, and I knew that eventually, one small push would bring everything down. Then an opportunity appeared that seemed almost too perfect. The company was invited to participate in a major investor summit. Hundreds of investors, business leaders, journalists, and entrepreneurs would attend. It was the largest event we had ever been associated with. Sophia was thrilled. She immediately accepted an invitation to speak on stage. News of her appearance spread quickly. Social media posts announced her participation. Industry publications promoted her speech. Everyone was excited to hear the success story of the company's so-called founder. Everyone except me. Because I knew that event would become the turning point. The moment everything changed. Over the next month, I prepared carefully. I reviewed every document again and again. I organized records into a clear presentation. I created a timeline that showed the company's complete history from the first idea to the present day. I gathered emails with timestamps, contracts with signatures, product files with creation dates, financial records showing every early transaction. Nothing was left to chance. Then I reached out to someone unexpected, one of the lead investors from the original meeting. Instead of accusing Sophia directly, I requested a private conversation. During that meeting, I calmly presented a small portion of the evidence. The investor's expression changed almost immediately. Confusion became concern. Concern became disbelief. By the time our conversation ended, he realized something was seriously wrong. However, I asked him not to act yet. I wanted the truth revealed publicly. I wanted everyone to see it for themselves. Reluctantly, he agreed. As the summit approached, my nerves returned. Not because I doubted the evidence. I trusted the facts completely. What worried me was the emotional side of the situation. Sophia wasn't just a business rival, she was my sister. Part of me still remembered the person she used to be, the person I trusted, the person I admired. There were moments when I considered walking away, starting over somewhere else, leaving the company behind and avoiding the confrontation entirely. But every time those thoughts appeared, I remembered the years of sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the opportunities I had missed, the dreams I had invested into building something meaningful. Walking away would not create peace. It would reward betrayal. And that was something I could never accept. The night before the summit, I received a message from Sophia. It was short and simple. "Big day tomorrow. Wish me luck." I stared at the screen for several seconds. Then I laughed softly. She had no idea what was coming. She believed tomorrow would be another victory, another chance to expand her reputation, another opportunity to enjoy attention she hadn't earned. For the first time in months, I felt completely calm. The fear was gone. The uncertainty had disappeared. Everything was ready. The evidence was prepared. The witnesses were ready. The investors were paying attention. All that remained was the final step. The next morning, hundreds of people filled the summit hall. Cameras pointed toward the stage. Journalists prepared their notes. Investors discussed opportunities. Entrepreneurs shared ideas. The atmosphere was electric. From a seat near the front, I watched Sophia walk confidently toward the stage. She smiled at the audience. They applauded loudly. She looked powerful, successful, untouchable. As her speech began, she spoke with the same confidence that had fooled so many people. She described building the company. She talked about sacrifices she never made. She shared lessons from experiences that belonged to me. The audience listened carefully. Some even took notes. But what Sophia didn't know was that several key investors already had questions. Journalists had begun comparing timelines. Important people were watching more closely than ever before. And hidden among the crowd was the truth she had spent months trying to bury. By the time her speech ended, she believed she had delivered the performance of her life. She stood proudly on stage as applause filled the room. Then the moderator smiled and announced something unexpected. Before we conclude, we have one final presentation related to the company's journey. Sophia looked confused. I slowly stood from my seat. The room became silent. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. And in that moment, for the first time since the betrayal began, Sophia's confidence disappeared. Because she finally realized that the person she had underestimated was about to tell the real story. As I stood up from my seat, the entire room seemed to freeze. Hundreds of people turned to look at me. Investors paused their conversations. Journalists lowered their phones for a moment. Even the event staff stopped moving. The silence was so complete that I could hear my own heartbeat. On stage, Sophia stared at me with a look I had never seen before. For months, she had appeared confident, untouchable, and completely in control. But now, for the first time, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know how much. The moderator welcomed me to the stage, and as I walked forward, I noticed people whispering to each other. Most of them recognized me as Sophia's sister. Very few knew the truth. Very few understood why I was there. But that was about to change. When I reached the microphone, I took a deep breath and looked around the room. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't nervous either. The months of preparation had given me something stronger than emotion. They had given me certainty. I began speaking calmly. Before this event ends, I believe everyone deserves to hear the complete story of how this company was built. The room remained silent. Sophia attempted a smile, but it looked forced. I continued. For a long time, I stayed quiet because I hoped misunderstandings would correct themselves. Unfortunately, they didn't. Today, I want to share facts, not opinions. A large screen behind the stage lit up. The first image appeared. It was a company registration document dated years earlier. My name was clearly listed as the founder. A few people in the audience shifted in their seats. Some leaned forward with interest. Others exchanged surprised glances. I moved to the next slide, then the next, then another. One by one, documents appeared on the screen. Product development files, original design drafts, customer communications, early financial records, business licenses, contracts. Every document contained dates. Every document contained evidence. Every document told the same story. I had built the company from the beginning. As the presentation continued, the atmosphere inside the room changed dramatically. The excitement that had filled the summit earlier was replaced by shock. Journalists started taking notes rapidly. Investors focused on every detail. Nobody was looking at Sophia anymore. They were looking at the evidence. Then I showed something even more powerful. A timeline displaying the complete history of the company. Every milestone was documented. Every major decision was recorded. Every important achievement was connected to verified records. There was no room for confusion, no space for interpretation. The truth was visible for everyone to see. I glanced toward Sophia. Her face had become pale. The confidence she carried onto the stage was disappearing minute by minute. Still, I wasn't interested in humiliating her. I wasn't there for revenge in the way people expected. I wasn't there to insult her or embarrass her. I was there to restore the truth. That distinction mattered. So instead of attacking her character, I focused entirely on facts. The evidence spoke for itself. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of the lead investors stood up and asked a question. Are these records verified? Before I could answer, another investor spoke. We've reviewed many of these documents already. They appear completely authentic. A murmur spread across the audience. Suddenly, people realized this wasn't a family disagreement. This wasn't a misunderstanding between siblings. This was a documented record of who had actually created the company. The mood shifted instantly. Journalists who had previously praised Sophia now looked concerned. Business leaders who had admired her story began questioning everything they had heard. The image she had spent months building was starting to collapse. But the most powerful moment came when several early employees and partners stood up from different parts of the audience. One after another, they confirmed my story. They described working with me during the company's earliest days. They talked about long nights, difficult challenges, and critical decisions. None of them mentioned Sophia as the founder because she wasn't there. She hadn't built the company. She hadn't created the product. She hadn't taken the risks. Hearing those testimonies had a powerful effect. Facts are strong, but hearing multiple people confirm those facts is even stronger. The room no longer had doubts. The truth was undeniable. The moderator eventually turned toward Sophia and asked if she wanted to respond. For a few seconds, she remained completely silent. She looked around the room, searching for support. But the applause, admiration, and confidence she had enjoyed earlier were gone. Finally, she stepped toward the microphone. Her voice was quieter than usual. She attempted to explain her role. She tried to describe her involvement. She suggested there had been misunderstandings. But every explanation sounded weaker than the one before. Because when facts are clear, excuses lose their power. The audience listened politely, but the outcome had already been decided. People believed evidence. They believed documentation. They believed truth. And the truth was standing right in front of them. By the end of the session, several investors approached me directly. They apologized for the confusion. Some admitted they had been misled by appearances. Others praised the professionalism I had shown throughout the situation. A few even expressed interest in working together moving forward. The opportunity I thought I had lost forever suddenly returned. In many ways, it returned stronger than before. Over the following weeks, the impact of that presentation spread throughout the industry. Articles were updated, interviews were corrected, business publications published the true story of the company's creation. The narrative that Sophia had built for herself slowly disappeared. Meanwhile, my reputation grew stronger. Not because I had attacked someone, not because I had started a public fight, but because I had remained patient and allowed the truth to speak. As for Sophia, the consequences were difficult. Many professional relationships became strained. People questioned her credibility. Invitations became less frequent. Opportunities became harder to find. Watching this happen wasn't satisfying in the way I once imagined. In fact, it was surprisingly sad. This was still my sister. Despite everything, part of me wished things had never reached this point. But choices have consequences. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. Several months later, Sophia contacted me and asked to meet. At first, I wasn't sure if I should go, but eventually I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe. The moment she sat down, I noticed how different she seemed. The confidence was gone. The arrogance had disappeared. For the first time in a long while, she looked honest. After a few minutes of silence, she apologized. Not the kind of apology people give when they are caught. A real apology. She admitted she had become obsessed with recognition. She admitted she had enjoyed the attention. She admitted she had convinced herself that her contributions were more important than they actually were. Listening to her wasn't easy, but it gave me something I didn't realize I needed. Closure. I couldn't change what happened. Neither could she. But understanding the truth behind her actions helped me finally move forward. We didn't magically repair our relationship that day. Some damage takes years to heal. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, a beginning is enough. Today, when people ask about the biggest lesson I learned from building a company, they expect me to talk about business strategies, or investment opportunities. Instead, I tell them something much simpler. Success attracts attention. Attention attracts opportunity. But it also reveals character. Some people celebrate your victories. Others try to claim them. The important thing is remembering that truth doesn't disappear simply because someone tells a louder story. Lies can move quickly. They can gain attention. They can even look successful for a while. But truth has something lies will never have: endurance. In the end, I didn't win because I was louder. I didn't win because I was more aggressive. I won because facts remain facts, no matter how long people ignore them. And that's the lesson I hope everyone remembers. If someone steals your credit, betrays your trust, or tries to rewrite your story, don't panic. Don't rush. Don't destroy yourself with anger. Stay patient. Protect the truth. Gather the facts. Because eventually, the truth has a way of finding the spotlight. And when it does, no lie can stand in front of it forever.